Geek question number 42. Windows or Mac? I know this one is super divisive, so before I even answer it, throw a comment in, let me know which one you prefer, Windows or Mac. For me, I've always been a tinkerer, somebody who really wants to get into the nitty-gritty of things, and that goes back to the early 80s when my family had a Commodore 64 and you had to learn the command line just to load a program up. I learned how to load programs onto cassette tapes and then eventually floppy disks. Those were the old school days. I even learned how to write code in BASIC. And then my family moved on to a PC. It was an 8088. This thing ran at 8 megahertz, not gigahertz, megahertz. The screen only had 4 colors on it. But I loved it because I could really dig in and learn how a computer worked. Eventually, we got a computer fast enough to run Windows 3.1 and eventually Windows 95, and I was sort of all in on Windows at that point. And remember, this was the early 90s when Apple was kind of a mess, to be honest. The company was about to go out of business. Steve Jobs had been fired years prior to that. They were licensing their software to other companies now to build computers, which is something Apple had never done before. It wasn't until the late 90s when Steve Jobs got hired back, the iMac came out, and macOS became a Unix-based operating system, and things finally started to get back in line. Now don't get me wrong, Windows had their moments too. Anyone remember Windows Me? That was a disaster. But honestly, a lot of it for me had to do with the timing of when I became a computer geek. It was just in a time when Windows made more sense for most people. If I had to choose now, I think it would be a tough choice because we've got 2 amazing operating systems. Windows 11 has become an awesome platform, and macOS, iOS has become an awesome platform as well. And competition, after all, is an amazing thing to force companies to continue to get better and invent new things. So whichever option you choose, I think you're good to go in 2025. Follow me if you want to see part 2, Android versus iPhone.